and welcome to the latest episode of Off the Fence, brought to you in association with BOYLESPORTS, of course, on all the At The Races digital platforms. And I'm joined, as I am, week in, week out, from the start of the jump season to Cheltenham and beyond, by Geraghty and Tony Keenan. We're going to be looking back at all the racing over predominantly, basically, Saturday and Sunday, mainly focused on Leopardstown, but there's Sandown thrown in there as well. We've got plenty to get through, a lot of focus now on what these results mean for, of course, the Cheltenham Festival in just over a month's time. Very exciting times. We also have a competition winner to reveal to you, plus a new opportunity to win a £20 free bet coming up courtesy of BOYLESPORTS, and we have some prize boosts. So, as always, a jam-packed show. Let's have a quick check-in with the boys. Both of them have been at Leopardstown this weekend, as have I. We were all present and correct on various different days. Tony, you first. You went on Sunday. Bit of a depleted crowd, I heard, on Sunday. And plenty of action, though, taking place on the track. How was your day out?
Yeah, good. Sounds like I got the better of the days there with some of the carnage between traffic and the busyness on Saturday. I'd much prefer to be a little bit quieter. I thought it was grand. Some of the race in the middle part of the card now wouldn't set the pulse racing, but the handicaps, bumpers, things like that were all very competitive and interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we got some decent intel from the weekend. Maybe it wasn't quite what we wanted in terms of competition level, but I feel like there were some good takeaway points from it. Barry, you were broadcasting both days, so taking it very seriously indeed. Did you have a good time? Did it feel like a good atmosphere there?
Oh, it did, and Tony's right. Now Sunday was a better day, and the crowds were good. It was over 20,000 both days, I believe. So no, there's a good atmosphere. But lots of superstars on show, and I suppose it depends what you're looking for really. But I'd never tire watching superstars.
No, absolutely, and I wonder if there's any sort of coincidence in the fact there that you both said that the better day was the Sunday, and that was the day that I wasn't at the track. So I'm not going to take offence, guys, but it's just something to note. Barry, let's start with you with the Gold Cup chat, please. Obviously on Saturday, probably the highlight of the card, really. We had loads of Grade 1 racing on Saturday, but seeing Galopin Des Champs do his thing against Fast or Slow was pretty special. Maybe not quite as sparkling as the sort of performance he put forward at Christmas, but still pretty decent. We spoke about it on the show previously. He does what he does at Leopardstown, and of course he's shortened for the Gold Cup. But from your point of view, what was the big differences maybe from Christmas until this performance with Galopin Des Champs compared to this performance?
Well, I suppose going into Christmas, he was on the back of a defeat in the John Durkan and at Punchestown, so a lot of people had probably lost faith in him. And then he came out and he blitzed the field. But he'd more to contend with on Saturday with Fast or Slow. Plus he had to make his own running. Now he's gone so relaxed now for me. He didn't jump as fluently as he can because he is so switched off. I think he's going to be much better with a lead. But he could dictate his own pace. Didn't jump as tidy as he could. He bossed the race. Fast or Slow came with a good strong challenge on the run to the last. And albeit Galopin Des Champs ran around on the approach to it, on landing you could see from Paul Townend's body language that he had it in the bag and it was just hands and heels, and he won cosy, if you like. Fast or Slow did put up a good test, and if you were to discuss about his chances in the Gold Cup, a true run race is going to suit Fast or Slow, but I think a lead will bring out a better round of jumping from Galopin Des Champs, so it'll probably work in both of their favours, if you like. But I don't see a reason why Fast or Slow will be able to turn it around with Galopin Des Champs. I think he was very solid again.
Okay, so Barry voting for be bit tough for the form to be turned around. Obviously the market suggests that, Tony, but what do you think would happen? Like, what circumstances at Cheltenham would get Galopin Des Champs beat if he goes there in the form we've seen him in the last two runs?
I think if he turns up in the Christmas form, he's going to be very hard to beat. There are reasons he can get beaten. I suppose a race that's run very differently to the last day could potentially get him beaten. This was a little bit of a walk the dog type thing in front for Paul Town, and slow pace, which probably has suited all four of them. They don't particularly want to have a hard race over 3 miles 5 weeks out from what for most of them will be the big target, whether it's the Ryanair or Conflated, and the Gold Cup with kind of the 1-2. The possibility is that maybe he has gone to all the 3 Irish Grade 1s that would have been suitable. Maybe that will affect him at Cheltenham. His jumping could let him down. He wasn't wonderful jumping wise in the Gold Cup last year. Much better at Christmas, Saturday, not so much. And I suppose the history maybe is the thing that could catch him out, because we know that it's extremely hard to win 2 Gold Cups back to back. Alboom Photo did it, but of a very, very different preparation. One run and then on to Cheltenham, having gone to Tramore before that. Reasons for Fast or Slow getting a bit closer. I suppose he's coming off a 69-day break. Coming into this, he'd missed the target. It's possible that Martin Brazel would be aiming him at the big day and leaving a little bit to work on that would be his way of training, though this in itself was a big day. One interesting, I see this race IQ thing where they're talking about the jumping, like Fast or Slow was gaining lengths on Galopin Des Champs in terms of jumping. The only thing about that is when you look at Fast or Slow's kind of the way JJ Levin was riding him, every time he'd gain half a length of the fence, he'd take him back because he didn't particularly want to get into a battle with Galopin Des Champs from a mile out type of thing. So just with those kind of stats, I just wonder in certain types of races are they not as useful. Maybe in a kind of bowl jumping front runner of 2 miles that's taking half a length out of a rival, that is a useful half length, whereas maybe in a staying chase like this when the jockey is just looking to take a lead, it doesn't really tell you an awful lot. But there are reasons, and then of course probably the biggest reason from a betting point of view is the price. Do you want to back a horse at odds on in a Gold Cup? His presence probably creates a good each way shape to the race. He is going to face some horses that he hasn't faced before as well. Shishkin, Long Press, Cork Rambler, a few of those. But yeah, is he the best horse? Yeah, and if he turns up in the Christmas form, he will win, provided he just gets normal luck. But at the prices, I think I'd chance something else.
Okay, well, on that note, in terms of prices, my first price boost for you loyal listeners and viewers out there is offer BOYLESPORTS to put forward Galopin Des Champs and El Fabiolo, who we're about to discuss, to win obviously the Gold Cup and the Champion Chase, is a 7-4 bet. If you want to get involved in that sort of double, it's currently 7-4 for that double. Galopin Des Champs for the Gold Cup and El Fabiolo for the Champion Chase. And we can move on to that discussion point now, Barry, because of course he won the Dublin Chase over the weekend. Sort of did what he tends to do again, almost like same comments apply. Has he improved jumping wise, do you think, Barry?
Not in Saturday's performance. His jumping, or Sunday should I say, he's a little bit untidy. I suppose he doesn't have massive respect for his fences, and he showed that in the Arkle. He showed that at the last in Cork, and a few times down the back straight at the weekend. A little bit untidy, doesn't have massive respect, but I could probably draw a comparison with Moscow Flyer, who was partial to taking the odd liberty now and again, and I generally had a better ride off him with the end-to-end gallop you would get in a Champion Chase, or even a race in England, be it a Tingle Creek. When you go hard, those horses that just with that pace, you're rolling forward, jumping on a forward stride, or you only have to sit, you don't have to take your horse back because there's so much speed on, they'll naturally just back off slightly. So I think that when you raise the tempo in a Champion Chase, he's going to jump better. But I would be surprised if he put in a foot perfect round of jumping, because I don't think that's his style. He likes to rub one, as I say. He lacks a bit of respect. He's a big, big physical horse, and he gets away with it. And the fact he hasn't been on the floor as of yet, I'd say it's unlikely at this stage. He's learned the technique, if you like. So it was a good performance. It was solid. He beat Daniel Blue, who ran a good race. But yeah, it's very hard. It's his only flaw, really.
He'll be heading to the Champion Chase on a bit of a roll, whereas of course his main rival, or what we hope would be John Bon, the opposite has really happened to him. He's going to be heading to the festival off the back of a disappointing run. But El Fabiolo is doing everything right, as is the next horse we're going to talk about in Stateman Tony, who of course won another Irish champion hurdle on Sunday. Again, just kind of doing what the price, what the market, what everyone around him expected him to do, which was go and win, beating Bob Ollinger, no less, in the process. In Pire Pass, obviously they learnt front running not the way to ride him. And Willie Mullins claiming all they have in regards to beating Constitution Hill at the festival is hope. Hope is all they have, according to Willie. Tony, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, they have a little bit of hope. As you say, in Pere Pass, just they said they were going to try something new in terms of front running. he just seemed to hate it completely, needing to be ridden into hurdles. Then he goes down the back and he starts jumping way out to the right. That just hasn't worked at all. The trainer says he's still going to go for a champion hurdle. He may as well. His potential of a race, that could be a 4 or 5 runner race max at the moment. So there's 3 to 1 available there. State Man, there's still 3 places available. If you were that way inclined, you want to bet him in each of multiples, I would have absolutely no problem with that. Going to be obviously very hard to knock out of the frame. I suppose the only thing is like Constitution Hill. Where is he? Is kind of a possible concern, but not really a major one. Yeah, it just is what it is. Like, you know, some people mentioned maybe if we've got very soft statement, that might suit him a little bit better than Constitution Hill. But look, Constitution Hill also kind of blew that race apart at Sandown, that Talbot on really testing ground. So yeah, I don't know. Like the maths of the thing would suggest statement each way at 3 is still an okay bet, and I don't really know what else is going to turn up. Probably not an awful lot. As to Bob Bollinger, yeah, they've done well. They've won a couple of races with him. He's placed in a Grade 1. I still wouldn't think much of his attitude. I think his head's still very high, and if he turned up somewhere short, probably not the entry hurdle, because I think one of the other decent ones, Constitution Hill, might well turn up there. So if he turned up somewhere short, I think I'd like to try and get him beaten.
Fair enough, given what you've said about him in the past as well. We will take that on board again. Tony, let's stick with you to talk about novices, because we've rattled through the open horses there, and look, in many ways, not a huge amount new learnt. But with the novices, I feel like there's plenty of takeaways. We will start with the Grade 1 on Saturday, the Nathaniel Lacey Novices Hurdle over the mid-div trip, the 2.5 miles, won by a relative outsider in Dancing City, but of course for that man, Willie Mullins, all the same. Short price favourite being beat here. Was this a fluke, or is this a line of form with Dancing City we should be taking seriously?
Yeah, very much as you were, I suppose, with those more experienced horses that ran on Saturday and Sunday, but the novice is a bit more of a shake-up. And I think the trainer has done an excellent job with Dancing City. He wouldn't have looked like a horse that would stay much beyond 18 furlongs, maybe 2.5 at a stretch. As a bump horse, looked very fast, but he's got him very well settled. And really finishing out his race as well. Danny Mullins obviously rode an excellent race. He intended to lead. Then he saw that kind of Rachel Blackmore and Jatara were getting very keen. It didn't disadvantage his horse letting her go on, but it certainly disadvantaged her. She jumped poorly when she got to the lead, got very kind of lit up, and she lost a stirrup leaving the back. And I think Jatara probably on another day could have got closer. I think a lot of small things went against her. She kind of had nothing left in the finish. And Dancing City kind of found plenty from the lane now. How good the form is, I don't really know. Predator's Gold has closed a bit from off the pace. He still looks like a bit to learn about race, and I suppose he's only 5 and has that bit of upside kind of age-wise and things like that. But as usual, it does look like Albert Bartlett and stuff like that, and that race, very, very difficult race to sort from kind of a long way out. And then on the day something that kind of just improves dramatically for stepping up to 3 miles, could come out of nowhere and win it, as has happened in the past.
Yeah, it feels like we still haven't got a standout in that further division anyway. But Barry, let's move on to talk about the Triumph hurdle horses, or the juveniles anyway, because your selection, Cargies, in the Spring Juvenile, she won that again under that man Danny Mullins, which we'll get to in a minute. But in terms of the form of this race and slotting in with what we know about Sir Gino, we knew that these juveniles would have plenty more learnt off the back of this weekend in terms of the Irish scene with them. Do you believe this line of form, the Cargies? I know you were keen on her, but beating the likes of Stormheart and Bunting, Carla Conti back there, do you feel that this is the pecking order, that she is pretty much at the top of it?
Well, I was hopeful of that. I was hopeful she'd settle better, which she did. Danny gave her a brilliant ride. He jumped out a little bit like Dancing City, and then he took back. He was actually 6th leaving the back straight, but he said he filled up with petrol, and he was saving that petrol for later on. So she was a good winner, but there was only 3 or 4 lengths covered the first 5. So I'm not sure there's a standout horse among them. Where Sir Gino, to me, looked like a standout horse in Cheltenham, and looked like a horse who's open to more improvement again. So no, I think at the minute the Irish would look weak in this 4-year-old division, I think.
Oof, it's not something we say very often, is it, that the Irish look weak? But I'll take it. Tony, in behind Cargies, there was plenty of takeaways from your point of view.
Yeah, like Barry said there, look, very little cover in the, I think it was 5 lengths cover in the first 6. I thought Paul and Townend didn't really ride a race in Stormheart. He kind of kept him wide. He was kind of an inexperienced horse. Maybe wanted to give him a look at his hurdles. I thought he was one that might benefit from the experience. Maybe you could put him in amongst horses the next day. Maybe he thought just based on Punchestown that he just was going to be a class above them. He looked amazing at Punchestown, but this is a vastly different race. Probably not too many in with a chance as Punchestown, but there were 6 or 7 here at least that had a right chance. I thought Magsborough ran a really good race. Trainer saying afterwards he's a chaser. Definitely looks he seems to be that way. A massive sort compared to some of these. Bunting looks like a horse that kind of wants further. I thought he was kind of keeping on to the lane. Probably 2.5 might suit him. Obviously there's not the facility for those races for juveniles unless they're going to do something unusual. And Ethical Diamond actually kind of ran quite a good race. Like Willie Munn said after Christmas, seemed to imply that him and Bunting and Stormheart were all kind of in line, and that Ethical Diamond might nearly want to be at the top of it. The pecking order. In fact, the race that he went for, the juvenile maiden hurdle on the 27th at Leopardstown, would suggest that he was at the top of, or close to the top of the pecking order. Like he finished kind of really well, having jumped poorly, kind of ran down the last as well. I imagine they're going to kind of try the Etait Temps approach with him and just keep him to the grade 1s, and sure, if he wins one, absolutely fantastic, and if not, keep him for novices. And actually the other option have with him, of course, to go back in the flat, totally unexposed on the flat. I think it was McNamara used to train him. So yeah, plenty of those in behind I think would have reasons why they might get closer to Cargie's the next day, although Cargie's did travel best, and maybe she's going to keep improving. But yeah, a bit like a Christmas, they finished in a bit of a heap. More truly run race this time, but they were still kind of in a heap, and you would expect the Donnelly horse who did look really good in Cheltenham and really professional as well, despite being inexperienced, to maybe be the superior.
Okay, so Gino very much at the top of the Triumph Hurdle betting. Barry, let's move on to what was the third leg of that remarkable Danny Mullins Grade 1 treble. First 3 races on the Saturday goes his way, the third of which was, of course, with Etait Temps in the Irish Arkle, out-battling Founder 50, much better performance from him. But Marine Nationale, the big disappointment, along with really Facile Vega, like he's missing in action at the moment. But the main focus here really did seem to be around Danny at this point. I'm sure it was from your point of view, broadcasting as well.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant ride. But Founder 50 ran a good race and went a good gallop. Jumping was straighter. That experience the last day, I haven't made the running, so it stood to him. So he was better. But Facile Vega, you'd have to be disappointed with. So I'm beginning to lose faith in Facile Vega this time around. So Marine Nationale seemed to travel reasonably well through the race, jump reasonably well, but he has been wearing a tongue tie on his 2 runs and a first and second run this season over fences. So I just wonder, is there an issue there? Maybe not. But also, if I'm to draw a comparison with other horses as well, some horses do handle softer ground over hurdles better than they do over fences, and I would compare them to 2 I rode, as in Finian's Rainbow could compete on really soft ground over hurdles but couldn't over fences, better and better ground. And for Paddy de Plaster, the same, was a grade 1 winner on really soft ground over hurdles but had to have good ground over fences. So whether that's a concern for him or the tongue tie could be the obvious one, and maybe there is a wind issue on the way, if you like, but you'd have to be a bit disappointed with him. But as regards Danny's ride, he rode a patient race, he conserved, but it was probably, that was, if you were to look at a second string where there's no pressure, this was one of those rides. They got racing early in the straight, Danny just sat and let them at it for a few strides, and then he came with 1 run and wore down Founder 50. It was a brilliant ride. It was probably the winning and losing of the race, but the fact he could just sit out of the race for a little bit early in the straight, I think gave him that extra finish. So he benefited from a second string ride, really.
Yeah, it's interesting that just him having that real sweet spot of that no pressure angle, and he can make those choices. If he gets beat, he gets beat, and if he wins, he's a miracle maker. Tony, in terms of the race itself, obviously it's funny with Marine Nationale. It's like we came into this thinking that, well, lots of people saying that he was bulletproof, and now we've come out of this, questioning the ground, as Barry's just said there, but also his breathing as well. So we've gone from sort of no questions to loads of questions with Marine Nationale. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think when the tongue tie went on and Barry Connell said that he had a breathing operation before Christmas, probably people were asking a couple of questions. his initial start, his first ever start at Punchestown in a bumper, he would have held his head quite awkwardly, and I don't think it was wonderful here at the weekend either. And you do have a ready-made reason for that. Like if he is having trouble with his breathing, that will be probably causing it. That's a very interesting point about the hurdles chase thing that Barry has said. There could well be something in that. And the ground on the weekend was, to me, was softer than officially given. Willie Munn's commented after Dancing City's win that they were surprised how soft it was. Leopardstown wouldn't really have a tendency to get too soft, but I think it was pretty testing. And even Larkin Weir was seeing that as they went inwards on the track on the Sunday. The hurdle track was pretty deep. Winner's done it well. He's a real Leopardstown horse. His peak effort in each of his 3 seasons has come at this track. I don't know his Cheltenham's track. He put in a horrible performance now in the Triumph Fordley. He was nearly unrideable. And last season in Supreme, I just really never got into a jumping rhythm. I would give him a bit of credit. I think sectionals wise, like he's actually finished really quick. It wasn't that there was a pace collapse up front or anything like that. I think Gordon Ed's done a good job in spotting that. I found a 50 to 2 mile or not a 2.5 mile. I think the drop back to 2 has really suited him. But the Arkle picture is just really unclear. Like you've a couple of horses needs to bounce back. I think Willie Muns has said that he's going to keep Facile Vega 2 miles, which is interesting. I thought he ran better at the weekend, maybe with a view to further. His jumping just lacked sharpness. He just be a bit hesitant at some of his fences. Sometimes he's very good, but he was 3 or 4 there where he was very hesitant. I presume people who have horses in the Arkle, English trained and Irish trained, will now all be keen to run, because Marine Nationale has gone from looking like he's going to be very hard to beat to showing some serious vulnerabilities, and with Facile Vega doing likewise.
Yeah, blown wide open, the Arkle betting. And Etait Temps is our next price boost. Is 11 to 2 from 9 to 2 for the Arkle if you fancied him at Cheltenham. Given what Tony said, interesting to see if many of you avail of that price boost. Do not forget that it is for a limited time only, and you must do it responsibly. You must also read the T's and C's with these price boosts, which will be in the show's description below, so please do all of that. Barry, let's move on to Ballyburn, please, who of course bolted up really in the Tattersalls Novices Hurdle on Sunday, dropping back in trip, showing that he's trip versatile at this point in his career. Lots of talk about him beforehand, Ballyburn. Lots of sort of hype around him given how little he'd really done on the track at this point, but boy, he delivered, and I was very taken with him.
Yeah, he stepped forward massively from his first maiden when he was second to Firefox, put up a big performance at Christmas and built on that again. He was a little bit keen in the early part of the race, but jumped really well, travelled strongly, and every time Paul at Townend asked him, he picked up again and he picked up again. And Slade Steele ran a good race in second, 7 lengths behind him, and King of Kingfields another 7 lengths back, and he was only beaten 1.5 lengths by Fair & Glory in the Royal Bond, also grade 1. So no, this is really strong form. We saw it here a few years ago. Willie especially would appreciate it. I was thinking he should be stepping up and trip, and Willie said no, 2 mile, that's what he do. So he generally tends to stick to the trip with a win over, so which would suggest that Ballyburn will be going for the Supreme, and for me he's the standout novice so far this season.
Standout novice, and we needed a standout novice. We've been saying this throughout the season, that sort of various performances have shoved horses to the top of the Supreme betting, or the sort of bearing Bingham now, isn't it? But now we've got Ballyburn up at the top of the Supreme betting, and he is our next price boost. He's boosted out by BOYLESPORTS to 15 to 8 from 13 to 8 for the Supreme at the Cheltenham Festival. As standard with our price boost, T's and C's do apply. I think, Tony, for me, one of the reasons I like this performance quite so much is that the form, I hope anyway, feels like it's got a fair bit of strength and depth behind it. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. I liked the run of the second as well. I got the impression reading Henry de Rompet's comments in the paper yesterday morning that he had left him down a bit from Navan, and he did something similar last year within the pocket. I think In the Pocket was well beaten in this race now behind Etait Temps at the DRF last season, and then obviously beat Etait Temps at Cheltenham. So I would expect him to take a bit of improvement now, maybe not enough to get back round with Ballyburn. I think they'll be going for different races anyway. I think Slade Steele will be much better suited to be the 2.5 race, and a lot of these DeBromhead horses do improve plenty for the run into kind of Cheltenham, so I think he's a big player in that bearing Bingham. Provided Ballyburn stays the 2 mile, and Barry's saying that, and I would tend to agree. It's just interesting, do the Mullins team want to split mystical powering himself up. Of the rest, King Kingsfield, I was surprised how well he can cope with the ground. I just don't know, is there any more to come from him? I thought Absurd actually shaped third best. He wouldn't be in love with that ground. He was probably needing to run a bit of Christmas along with the ground when very testing. He was coming back from Melbourne. He kind of lost his position a little bit, leaving the back on Sunday. Jit Langley kind of took his ground, but he made his ground up really smoothly after that. To kind of look to be going third best, just flattened out late. I would say less stiff test. Maybe a Fairy House or a Punchestown or on nice ground would really suit him. Even if tried it in Supreme, you have a chance of making the frame. Jit Langley's kind of an interesting horse in himself. There was a lot of money for him now. He was kind of 66, 80 to 1 there when the open betting first he went off, like kind of a hard 20 to 1 shot. He kind of ran alright. He quite a negative ride, but kind of kept on while he hadn't run, I think, since Tipperary in May. So there was a bit of promise in that. Foreign Glory was disappointing. I just wondered if Gordon Elliott want to run the Caldwell Potter horse in this. Like, it would have looked the ideal race for him, considering what he'd done at Christmas. I kind of think they must think that he's better than Foreign Glory. I think if you toss up going to Leopardstown or Aintree, you're going to Leopardstown with the better horse. So, but in any case, Foreign Glory didn't get to show his form because he's bled here, which obviously is not ideal for whatever you're looking to do with him in the short term.
Yeah. Now you've rattled through all of those horses, I'm thinking, there's plenty to take away from that Ballyburn race anyway, and going forward I hope they stick at the minimum trip with him at the Supreme trip, and that of course is where your price boost is. Tony, let's stick with you just to dissect the match race between Gaelic Warrior and Factor File. Of course, Factor File winning the Novice Chase over the 2.5 miles, beating Gaelic Warrior, who obviously unshipped Paul Townend at the last, having looked very well beaten at that point. Not the race we were hoping for by any standards, and I'm a big Factor File fan, but even by my standards I'm not entirely sure I can wax lyrical too much about this performance, can I, Tony, or are you going to correct me on that?
It's hard to know. I think there's a couple of sides to this argument. I think you can definitely start rubbishing his form if you want. He ran at Christmas and Manila Cocoon would say nowhere near ready. So he had Zanny here to beat, who has won one race I think since he's a juvenile hurdler. Albeit been a good horse to place in champion hurdles, but just doesn't seem what he was. And then obviously with what has happened on Sunday. Now, what he does have, one massive positive, is that Willie Mullins went straight over fences with him. I think that speaks volumes. Just a massive plus in his corner. And also his time at Christmas was very good, but his time on Sunday, this is very hard to credit because it was in theory uncompetitive in the fact there was only two of them, but far from it in terms of times. Reading some of the time guys, like they're kind of saying that up until the the race was over at this stage, he was going a similar clip to the speed they went in the Dublin Chase, the Fabiolo race, which is crazy. Like, you're talking about the top 2 miler, compared to this horse, Novice having just his third start over fences. But also the handicap chase, the Leopardstown Chase after that. God, they need to come up with more original names than the Leopardstown, the Dublin Chase, don't they? Anyway, that's besides the point. Like Chavez was making the run in there, and to me, visually, he looked to be going really hard. So they got the 3 out in the Gaelic Warrior Factor File race over 8 seconds quicker than they did in the handicap chase. Like, that's 30-40 lengths depending on what kind of measurement you're using, taking in the ground. That's crazy stuff. Like, Gaelic Warrior's gone far too hard now. I'd say that's one thing about him, and Paul Townend obviously has just felt that there's nothing under him. He was a little bit awkward 4 out. I thought he had an awkward landing and just wondered if something happened to him there, and he was slow at the next 2. He was obviously beaten at this stage. The race was over. So, but the thing about Fact the File, I suppose, is that this is all very much reflected in the market. Like, what is he, kind of around 3 to 1, 5 to 2 for both of his potential Cheltenham targets? I would have thought the 3 mile race would be the race to go for. This was a fast pace over 2.5 on soft ground. The Turners is 2.3.5. It's probably going to be on decent ground. I think that might find him out a little bit. I do like the horse a lot, but I don't know whether I want to be with him because of his price, but I think it's a 3 mile race that they will probably go for. And the fact that Mullins would like to gradually build his horses up and trip a lot of the time. They don't necessarily have to have gone 3 miles before they would go for a race, a Broadway.
Yeah. God, I'm not sure which trip at this stage in his career I'd like to see him over, but as you say, he's pretty prominent in the market for the Turners and the Brown Advisory, Factor File. And as for Gaelic Warrior, well, clearly that wasn't his running. Hopefully they can get him back on track sooner rather than later. Tony, I did want to talk to you. We've obviously rattled through those Grade 1 performances without really talking about the elephant in the room that is the Mullins domination. 8 Grade 1s, 8 of those going to Willie Mullins, a clean sweep. Obviously, it's not the state of jump racing that you want. Like, we can all applaud it. It's incredible. And there's so many positives, different owners, different jockeys, etc., etc., second, third strings. I can see all the positives. But the domination, when you really sort of step away from it and look at the sort of bigger picture, it's pretty unexciting, isn't it? Is that fair?
Yeah, look, it doesn't do it for me. I've been quite straight about it. Like, I wouldn't even go up to the stand for some of these races that were on yesterday. I'd be sprinting up the stand. I'd have to get into a position for that 2 mile handicap hurdle or the bumper or the Leopardstown Chase. Jeez, I'd have to get a great view into that, the champion hurdle type race, the champion chase type race. Look, sure, you kind of know what's going to happen. It's not, except what Barry's saying, they are very good horses, but in terms of competitiveness, it doesn't feel great. Like Willie Mullins, like, he won these races yesterday and Saturday, but like, he, in a way, he kind of won them 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got such a kind of cohort of owners. Like, there's nothing exceptional about his achievement over the weekend if you just judge it on the market. Like, he had 8 Grade 1 winners. Like, the betting market said he should have had 6.7 winners. You know, in terms of that, it's not what it says on the tin, shall we say. Like what I mean, sorry, just explain it for anyone who doesn't know what I mean by implied winners. Like, so Ballyburn was sent off 10 to 11. In theory, he would be just over half a winner, 0.55 of a winner. So things like that like 6.7 winners, like anything less than 6, he's kind of having a nightmare, the market is saying. Yeah. So, you know, to me, the most disappointing aspect of the thing is that Gordon Elliott and Henry de Bromhead and English trainers, if you want to go there as well, have not been able to muster any sort of opposition. Really, I think Gordon Elliott has a number of horses shipped quite well over the weekend. Henry de Bromhead won a handicap, but in terms of getting competitive horses into these races, like between the rest of the trainers over the weekend, like they've only got 1.3 suggested winners. Like, so, like, I don't know. It's for me, it's just not a brilliant watch. I know when I'm looking at the weekend, I'm really looking forward to the handicaps. Both bumpers were interesting. I thought some of the races on Saturday, like the I suppose the Triumph Hurdle type race was interesting to analyse, and the Arkle was a half decent study, but the stuff on Sunday, now I have to say, no, it was pretty dull. Maybe like other people may have a total different view on that, and I have a great friend who loves nothing better than the short priced Willie Mullins double, treble, 4-timer. He thinks I'm an absolute fool, and maybe he's right, but that would be my fairly strong opinion on it.
Yeah, and I feel like I haven't always been in that camp, but I might be after this weekend. I was so looking forward to this weekend, Barry, and the action on the track, and I felt after Sunday that it hadn't quite delivered how I wanted it to in terms of excitement levels, and on reflection, I think that probably is because of that Mullins domination, and Tony there putting the sort of numbers behind what you already suspected, in the sense of his expected amount of winners in those Grade 1s being 6.7. Like, you heard people saying, oh, it's an exceptional training performance for him to take all 8 Grade 1s, but given what his yard is now and what he's sending to the start in terms of first, second and third string, it's not actually an exceptional training performance, because he's got the stock to back it up. It's not the performance that it would have been 20 years ago, is it?
Yeah, maybe not, but he has the stock to back it up, but he has to get that stock there in the best shape it can be, and he brought a lot of stock to the table, and the majority of them, with probably the exception of Gaelic Warrior, ran to their form. So I know, and I'd understand what Tony did, the point he makes, but I suppose for me, I'm going there as a racing fan, and to see those good horses. You do get competitive races. The juvenile, as Tony mentioned, was competitive in the handicaps, but those Grade 1 races, Fast or Slow did his best against Galopin Des Champs. He was beaten fair and square. Galopin Des Champs is a horse worth going to Leopardstown to see, Likewise, Fabiolo. Likewise, Statement, who probably doesn't get the recognition he deserves. So you can argue that, but then again, he had a 10-1 winner of a bumper, a 16-1 winner with Dancing City in the novice hurdle. So it's not all the favourites at least. And there is a spread in owners, as you mentioned beforehand, with the Donnellys being the only owner to have 2 winners over the weekend. So maybe I'm looking for the positives, but as a racing fan, I still enjoy seeing those superstars, and even the fact that felt Galopin Des Champs, it was a match, but there was a bit of intrigue. How was this going to play out? And you could say the same probably for Galopin Des Champs and Fastest Slow, because that was like a match as well, given that the other 2 horses probably had very little chance of getting involved. So there was a lot of interest in seeing how it was going to play out, but that's just purely as a fan with the betting options for me then in the handicaps, in the juvenile, in the bumper, in those other races.
Yeah. I get that. Any other discussion points from the DRF before we wrap up and move across to the action over in England? Tony, I will start with you. Any other performances you want to mention, or anything you're picking out in terms of backing in the future?
Yeah, I think Madara did very well to win the handicap chase on the Saturday, and this is maybe something that I don't know what the English trainers spot or were aware of, but the Irish handicapper really give that horse a chance. The horse was £2 lower than it was in England. I thought probably it had won off 130 in Cheltenham in December. I know it was kind of a 7-runner race, but the horse that it beat now probably should have won at Sandown on Saturday, but for falling. But the Irish handicapper had just kind of only given it the £3 for Cheltenham, which I thought was very fair. And if the English trainers had entered some of the horses, they might see that, oh God, we're actually been given a little bit of a chance here. It's working both ways. Like when the Irish horses come over, horses was really good now, in fairness. Just does things right. It's only 5 horses still on the up. I believe connections are saying that they want to go for the plate rather than the Grand Annual. They thought maybe the old course didn't suit when it ran, I think, back at the November meeting, so they want to try and get maybe the more stamina test into it. Other races, 3 mile handicap hurdle, Maxim came back to form. I'd say that form is quite solid because Maxim has peaked again. His 2 peak efforts to me in the last couple of years have come over 3 miles on quite soft ground at Leopardstown. He got a much kinder trip round than Gaelic of Ted Walsh. She was very well. She was even out at the outer part of the hurdle at points down the back straight. She's just a topper of a mare now. I love her. She's so consistent, turns up every day, travels to her races, jumps, does things right, jumps apart from a slight error at the last, which maybe cost her victory on Saturday, but she has to go to the Temps with a massive chance as long as the English handicapper doesn't take a dim view on her, but it's such a likeable mare. What else did you have? Yeah, well, look, Harry Rogers, brilliant to see him winning the God, I can't think of it, the Timeless Sash Windows handicap hurdle. Sorry, that was good mention of sponsors there. Did well to remember that.
Very good with these names today. I was
going to call it after the sponsors that were sponsoring in about 2003 there, but I won't. But that was a complete and utter pace collapse. And the fact that Lord Erskine was able to win that would say that the ground was really testing. Like, he's always been a little bit of a mudlark there. There's a few of them I'd say made their effort plenty soon enough. So Scottish and Magical Zoe and a few of them. Mayor's race opened the race on Sunday. Look, what you call her? God, I've forgotten the name of this horse. O'Brien's horse. She went clear. God, this is her party piece. Like, she just caves on the line every kind of time. Like, in run, player's dream, but if you've backed her, she's just such a tough watch. And Stuart Crawford, top Bruce, you got up to win. Stuart Crawford, actually, for a trainer that wouldn't have many runners at the Dublin Racing Festival, has a really good record. He's won that race on Sunday, and he won the Mayor's Bumper a few years back with Lily de Berle. But actually, over the years, he's run a lot of horses that would be double figure prices and they've actually done really well. It might be just something to keep in mind next year if he does have again probably his handful of runners. Sorry, that mare's Minx Tiara. Yeah, she's well named now. God, if you backed her, you'd want to have an in-running lane anyway.
And the bumper, bit of a mention to the bumper.
Sorry. Most importantly, something that may be somewhat actionable. The bumper. Emmett Mullins' horse was very impressive. he didn't seem to be particularly fancy. He wasn't dead in the betting or anything, but he didn't seem to be particularly fancy, which kind of fitted in with what Emmett Munns has said after his win in Fairyhouse and again on Saturday. He doesn't really work well at home, but by God, on the racetrack he does things right. He travelled into it beautifully and quickened up well to get down the rail. But I thought the horse in fourth, the Yellow Clay, ran an absolute screamer. He was a massive eye catcher. He was going as well as Jeroboam Machan, kind of on the turn in, and he just got squeezed out and shuffled back, got into a position that was completely impossible, and he's absolutely just flew home under tender handling. I think his last furlong was just behind Jeroboam Machan in terms of speed. I was just looking at some of the sectionals there. I've backed this horse for champion bumper off the back of this. I'm pretty sure he can still run because he's only had the 3 bumper runs. You can turn up there as long as you haven't had 4 or more. He was coming off a long break here. He hadn't run since the previous March. Presumably he's had an issue. Gordon Elliott also said, I was reading a stable tour there this evening, that he doesn't like heavy ground. He ran him in a schooling race at Tipperary or Thurles or somewhere back in the autumn, and he didn't go a yard on slow ground, so slowest ground on Sunday. That's another reason for improvement. He's kind of there is some 20s, 25s out there. I would want the non-runner no bet, and that's where I took a shorter price and backed him non-runner no bet, because he is coming off a setback and maybe he won't back up out of this. But I think if he turns up in the champion bumper, he has a chance of reversing the form. The other thing, he had a double penalty, whereas Jeroboam Machan only had one penalty. So he was running these kind of 4-year-old only bumpers started last year, which often can be terrible, but he really seems to have improved. So Gordon Elliott with a good record in champion bumper. This race would, I think the last 5 years, the winner of this has won the champion bumper 3 times, and second twice. So I think he was second best on the day, and with the potential to reverse form with the winner with fitness under his belt. So yeah, I really like him for the champion bumper. I think he's well worth taking a chance at the price he is there at the moment.
Okay, fascinating. Lots of takeaways then from the DRF, as of course you would expect. Barry, we must mention the Scilly Isles over at Sandown, of course. Bit of a quieter weekend in England, but the Scilly Isles was the Grade 1 action, and it was a race that really saw essentially the best and very worst of horse racing. A great result with the winner, Nickelback for Sarah Humphreys and James Best. Terrific for James Best, so well received from his fellow jockeys. Loved to see that. Loved the aftermath of the winner and the story behind Nickelback, and the way in which he won it, of course, as well. But the loss of Hermes Allen, Barry, just, a horse of that calibre for such a big yard, for high profile owners, given what he's done on the track prior to this, so much hope around him. It was hard. It was a hard watch, I thought, Barry, that particular race.
Oh, definitely. It was really tough for everyone connections. He was a gorgeous horse. Everything, he had a lovely way of going as an individual. I was never near him, but to watch him through his races, he jumped well, he travelled nicely. He was an easy ride. He was relaxed. He was very straightforward. Harry Cobden always seemed to have a nice time on him. So really tough. He was running a solid race, if you like, but really sad to see that happen. But as regards Nickelback and James Best, it was a great performance. He went a nice pace early on and then turned away from the stands and started to blitz, winging fences, and he got them on the back foot, he got them on the stretch, and really used his jumping down the back. He was winging the railway fences. He flew down over the last 3. Really good performance, benefited from the drying ground on the chase track. And probably just caught the field napping slightly, I would say. Maybe they lacked the pace to follow him. But the Jello ran on well, was closest at the finish. But no, I think Nickelback, just that little injection of pace that James Best gave going away from the stands, and the jumps down the back, it just got him a lead that couldn't get him back. So good performance, probably not a standout. He has an entry in Cheltenham, which they didn't intend on taking up, but it sounds like they're leaning that way towards the turners now.
A brilliant ride by James Best, and a brilliant way to win your first Grade 1 in that sort of style as well. Barry, any other takeaways from Sandown? Any other performances that might have gone under the radar, given that most of our focus was, of course, at Leopardstown?
Yeah, I think St Davy put in a good performance in the handicap to 2.5 mile. Good, solid. Looked like a horse who didn't do an awful lot in front. He's lightly raced. He's now 3 from 4, I think, over herds. 4 from 5 at this stage now. So no, I think he's worth keeping an eye on. But also Jinko Blue, he put up a good show in the handicap as well later in the card. He beat Titan Discovery, who was a winner in Ascot previously. He beat him 6 lengths. There were 11 lengths clear of the third. He travelled strongly. He flattened a few hurdles just from being a bit keen. So I think there's improvement in him. And he's another one to keep an eye on for the handicaps maybe next month.
Okay, positive note there. Elsewhere, before we look ahead to Newbury, up and coming will be the main focus of the look ahead section and of course tracker time. Just last section of the show because of course this is a bumper edition given the DRF, but we couldn't go through the show without mentioning the dispersal of the Caldwell horses, Tony. Obviously gone through the sales ring at Tattersalls today, this afternoon, and there's been plenty of high profile names in there and results, of course. Caldwell Potter, the big headline, going for 740,000 to High Flyer and Paul Nichols, so that's a stable change for him. Phil Dorr cost 620,000. Pied Piper 570. Staffordshire Knot 510. Mighty Bandit 420. I mean, there are some big figures in there, right the way down to the likes of Dr. Elvis at 260, Chemical Energy at 215. I mean, we knew they were high caliber horses, or some of them were anyway, Tony, but they've made some pretty big numbers, I think more than people were anticipating.
Oh God, I'm just looking them up here, have them in front of me. I just think it's madness. It's like the Royal Ascot sale the Monday before the meeting. Like Jessica Harrington's horse, they Give Me a Beat Boy, he's got 1.1 million. And then like whoever's the sales companies, they need to stop running their sale on the Thursday night at Cheltenham and start putting it on the Monday night. And trying to use this sort of thing, because when people have plenty of money and it's like the Dutch tulip fiasco there, people's willing to pay more. And I know for these people, like money, it's a different commodity to maybe the ordinary person that's thinking about like how many mortgage repayments or the price of their car loan or stuff like that. I know that, and they're paying for the potential feeling of a Cheltenham winner or an Etait winner or a national winner or whatever it is. And you know, at the top end of it, like I kind of don't like when you see what point to point horses are going for, like you're buying the dream. Most of them aren't going to turn out to be any use. You can kind of get behind, make some degree of sense out of what Caldwell Potter costs, or you know, Mighty Bandit. Like he was very impressed the first day, an excuse the second. And Field Door, I like Field Door. I think like he hasn't tried the 2.5 mile trip properly yet, and you know, maybe something. But some of these in the middle of the market, like they don't have any potential. Like this is like you've seen them. Like where did I get one of these here now? Like Safarur has cost 330,000. He has no potential to be anything. I'm sorry, this horse going win the plate now, and I'm going to look stupid, but like that's just madness. Like imagine 320. This horse is maxed out. Like winning another graded race would be fantastic. Firm Footings 330,000. Like in the mid, I don't think you're buying any potential there. Like I just don't know what's going on there. Like between them, they've made £1 million. So yeah, I don't know. Like if you miss out on the lads at the top, maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and buy somewhere else rather than looking at some of this stuff in the middle, because it just seems obscene. Like these other horses will take you to the top meetings. You're fairly sure of that, as long as they say a sound. But yeah, I don't know. Like they're as I say, I don't know. The money doesn't matter to a lot of these people, and that's brilliant for them. And sure, they can spend it whatever way, and they may as well enjoy it. But I just sometimes like to think maybe they could get a little bit more value out of it than spending on some of these in the middle of the market what prices they went for today.
I mean, Barry, you were up there. I was chuckling away there at some of Tony's lines, because the results in sales rings often don't make sense. Like you will have been witness to that, Barry. We've all been witness to that. I think there was sort of, everyone seemed a bit nervous pre this sale in terms of which way it was going to go. So I'm intrigued, given the fact they had no reserves the time they were selling, you know, the profile, the news around the owners. There was so much sort of coming into this sale that made it think, oh, I'm not sure which way it's going to go. It's gone the right way, I guess, really. But what was the atmosphere like up there? Because I know you were there for some of today.
Oh, it was buzzing. Car park was jammed. The sales ring, there were 10 deep around the top. Every seat was full. Wow. No, there was a lot of tyre hoppers. It was mostly tyre hoppers. Instead, there was about 15 people there who were involved in buying. Everyone else, myself included, was just there to have a look and get a feel for it all. But it was a massive sale, and some field door as Tony mentioned. especially Caldwell Potter as well. But tough to see Caldwell Potter changing stable. It would be very hard for everyone in the yard to lose a horse with that potential. He was 6 lengths ahead of Predators Gold at Christmas. He's very strong form, and he's one of the top class novices, and to see him move stable would be tough. But unfortunately, that was just the upside, or the other side of it, where Phil Dorr looks like he's been brought back to go to Gordon's. So at least they get to hang on to one of them maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is tough on Gordon, who's been caught in the crossfire here really clearly. Like, it's nothing to do with him. He sounds like he found out about this news pretty late, and he's going to lose some of those decent horses. Caldwell Potter, as Barry said, being the key one there. We don't have very much time left, Barry, and we've got to rattle through a couple of tracker horses, but we must just mention Newbury coming up on Saturday, because of course we've got the Denman Chase Game Spirit Betfair Hurdle. Denman Chase first, Barry. Shishkin's in here at 2-5 favourite. Very much looking forward to seeing him, of course, after the performance in the King George. Well, the unseat in the end, but you know what I mean. Protector at 3-1 last seen behind Le Press. Hitman's in there. Does he know, as well as the outsider along with Sam Brown? Small field for this, as you would expect. But you'd love to see Shishkin just jump off and have a clear round here, surely, after the season he's had.
Yeah, once Nico wasn't jumping off again, I suppose. But yeah, he was. if he can, and no fault of Nico's in Kempton. If he can back up the level of the form he showed in Kempton, yeah, he'd be hard to beat. Ground is good as well, which is ideal for him. So no, he's going to be hard to beat. Protectorate was put in his place by on press at Linkfield, and I wouldn't see any reason why he's going to improve on his chances. Likewise on good ground, because his best form is on soft ground.
In the game spirit, Barry, we have Boot Hill at the top of the market, but intriguing runner, I suppose. A lot of interest will be around Edwardstone stepping back in trip, back down to the 2 miles here to try and get his career, or season anyway, back on track. What will we hope of him against a horse like Boot Hill, who's on a much more sort of upward trajectory despite what happened the last day?
Yeah, that's the thing though. So he was being beaten by Saint-Segal when he fell at the last, and Saint-Segal went on to win since. But it probably showed a level. He has a ceiling, if you like. Whereas Edwardstone has been very competitive and Tingle Creeks and everything. He ran very keen in Kempton behind Banbridge. So I think you can forgive him. For me, he's a stronger level of form at that level than Boot Hill. So tricky enough. If the best Edwardstone turns up though, he'd be the one for me.
Okay, intriguing. You'd hope. I feel like his winning days aren't over quite yet with Edwardstone. It's easy to give up on these horses and sort of recency bias, but I hope we see him back on track. Quick mention for the Betfair Hurdle, Barry. We've got a horse in here called Ocastle de Mott for Willie Mullins. That man, Willie Mullins, in the double green. He's a French recruit off a very long break, and I can hold my hands up and tell you that I have very little knowledge about the current favourite for the Betfair Hurdle. But in behind him in the betting, we've got the likes of Iberico Lord under control for Nicky. Well, both of them, of course, for Nicky Henderson. Look away in there for Neil King. Such a likeable performer. Look away. I do love him. But do you have any information on that Willie Mullins horse that you can tell us about?
I don't, but unlike that, you take it a trust, his potential, and it's not unusual for Willie to bring him back after a long break and go and bolt up in a race like this. So it does look a competitive race apart from him though. But the one I do like is Tell Her the Name, who has had 4 runs since it won its point to point. It was second first time in Ascot soft ground to Jinko Blue. He went and won then in Huntingdon. He got pulled up on very soft ground in Aintree and got back on good ground again in Huntingdon and bolted up there. So he's been really impressive twice in good ground. He's struggled twice in soft, but the ground looks like it'll be good in Newbury. So I like Tell Her the Name, one of Ben Polling's.
Okay, like it. Very quickly now, because this has gone way over time, like normal. The competition winner from last week, so £20 free or euro, £20 or euro free bet, is going the way of at Paul Cook 8660, who commented on YouTube in the comments box below. You get the free bet from last week, and we have another BOYLESPORTS free bet to give away this week. And the question for you is quite simply, who are you backing in that Betfair Hurdle at Newbury on Saturday. So get involved in the comments below, be in with a chance of one of those free bets, which we've been giving away each and every week, courtesy of Boyle Sports. We've also got some other competitions coming your way in the coming weeks. But very quickly now, boys, tracker time. Just to wrap up the show, Tony, bring you back in here, please. You've already given us plenty of horses for the notebook in behind, but who is your peak tracker horse? You have to pick one of them or a different name.
I just go from probably a race that we haven't mentioned before. Barnahash Primrose was third in the Mayor's Bumper. It's a bet on the trainer as much as anything else. Jonathan Sweeney, very, very capable trainer. Can land a little bit of a gamble with this horse at Limerick at Christmas when she won a bumper really well. There in testing ground and at Leopardstown on Sunday. I thought she travelled better than any of them. Was just caught a little bit further back than the couple that beat her, ran on well. I just should feel like a horse that the trainer's going to just get the best out of, because that's what he does usually with the small handful of good horses that he gets.
Okay, positive note for the trainer there. Barry, your tracker horse, please.
Yeah, good time Johnny finished 5th in the Leopardstown Chase on Sunday. A couple of obviously mistakes, but it was over 2.5, which I think is a bit sharper than ideal. He won last year's per Temps at the festival, so he has a bit of course form. I think his jumping will be better up and trip, so I'd imagine if he gets into something like the Kim Muir, he might be one with a squeak.
Okay, good time, Johnny, for Barry then. Boys, thank you very much, as always, for your contribution. I know that was a heavy show, given that we had so much action to get through. An extended edition, I should say. Do get stuck in to those price boosts, but do it responsibly. Obviously, they're all on the Boyle Sports website. It is for a limited time only, and please read the T's and C's in the show's description below on YouTube. Also get involved in the YouTube comments and be in with a chance of winning that free bet that I've already mentioned. But for now, viewers out there, listeners too, thank you very much for watching and listening. That was Off the Fence, brought to you in association, of course, with Boyle Sports.